Welcome to Reality Exposed, the realm where shadows of truth dance with the beams of the known. You're listening to Francine and Gina. In this sanctuary of sound, we peel back the layers of the world, the one you think you know. Earth, a realm of wonders, of secrets, of mysteries concealed in plain sight. With each episode, journey with us as we delve deep, unmasking enigmas and seeking the truths that lie beneath the surface. Are you ready to step beyond the veil? For what you find might just transform your understanding of reality.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reality Exposed, Unmasking Global Deceit. I'm your co-host, Francine, and I am joined with, or by, the other co-host, Gina. Hi, Gina.
Hey, Francine, and what's up, everybody?
So, what are we going into today?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so today we're talking about the origins of humanity. And the oldest texts of the world are from seven tablets, and it mentions that humans were created by immortal aliens of highly advanced technology, and they descended upon Earth 400,000 years ago. They came from a celestial red planet called Nibiru and came to mine gold and other resources. They were called Anunnakis or Atlanteans. They mirrored humanity in many ways with emotions like love, jealousy, hate, and lust. Their heads, and I'm going to tell you something interesting because it says that their heads and bodies were much larger than humans, and they had like technological weapons and advanced weapons as well, like lightsabers and stuff like that. But check this out. I had a dream a long time ago, maybe within this last year or so, of me meeting an Anunnaki, but I didn't know they were Anunnaki. I was like, what are these beings that have huge heads and they look tribal? They were dark and they had looked tribal and they had like hair kind of like down, kind of afro-y, but I was holding a little baby of an Anunnaki baby in my arms. And they were friendly, they weren't mean. And I was holding this baby and describing exactly what I've been learning about the Anunnaki and what they look like, and even some videos of shared what they possibly look like. It was the Anunnaki. Now I feel in my heart. So I was like, wow, I was already visited by the Anunnaki before I'm even talking about the Anunnaki. And if you look at the map of the actual worlds as a whole, you will see that the planet Terra is actually next to the Anunnaki planet. It's right next to each other. So it makes total sense why they would come and see Earth.
I haven't done this part to connect the Atlanteans to the Anunnaki, but my opinion, I could be wrong. I will find out when I dive deeper into it. Is when the Atlanteans went bad, I think that's when like they became the Anunnaki, because from what I was getting was the Anunnaki were like right above the Draconian, the lizard people,
I
as
heard that
far as
too.
evilness goes. But they did resemble humans in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's the whole deceit thing. So yes, they are ethereal beings, and I guess, and they mask themselves as God.
Yeah.
There's once a man called created that's called Anu,
Mm-hmm.
the father
He
and
was
king
the
of
king of
all the
all
gods.
gods.
Right. And then he had two sons and
Enki.
one daughter.
Yep. There was Enki. He was the sun, the god of water. Um, Poseidon, and he was also the wisest. Then you have Enlil, who was brutal. He was a warrior god of winds and storms. And the daughter was Ishtar, aka Isis. And she was the experimental one.
The genealogist,
Yes.
sorceress.
Now, they're saying how it all started. See, this will tell you how far back we've been enslaved. How it all started was the working class Anunnaki was getting upset because they were doing all the work and they were getting sick of it, just like human workers. And so they wanted to have, the stuff that the royals had. And so they started to rebel against the gods, right? And then and this was how it was, the phrase was put, they fell out of the sky. They fell to earth in their spaceships like fallen angels. And that's what it said, like fallen angels. Oh, in the Bible, yeah. So, and then Enki and Ishtar, they came up with the solution to create another race, to become the slaves, the workers, so that they're not fighting with their own people. And then, so they combined the terrestrial and the celestial essence of the Anunnaki with an. Okay, so you know how they say that we came from monkeys, right?
Yes.
Well,
Darwin's theory of evolution.
he's not far off because that's what they used. All right, Isis Ishtar, she had tried a couple different ways to make the human, and they weren't working. So what she did is she took part of, which I can only imagine, the sperm of a primate, inserted it into her womb, the first in vitro fertilization, inserted into her womb. 10 months later, Adamu was born, aka Adam. And then Eve, she didn't come from his rib, but the DNA was taken from Adam's core. And then Eve was created. And then that's how Adam and Eve came about. Now, well, Eve was actually cloned. She wasn't born like Adamu was. So, but she was made to procreate with Adam. And they're saying Genesis translates to generations of Isis.
Yes, and so they say that she's the master geneticist and mother of modern humans.
Yes. Well, yeah, because she bore the first one. Now, this story was inscribed in the tablets of creation. Now, if you search the Sumerian texts and stuff like that, this was Sumerians, their tablets or whatever were the first, or are the first known writings. I forget what the name of that word was. It was a specific kind of writing, and I can't think of the name. So, and it says we're all made of stardust, right?
Hmm.
We are. We're all made of stardust and stories. Now, Erin Morgenstern, she phrased that quote, but we are made of stardust. Everybody is. Everything is. That's another how it all came about. But um, so Enlil, he's also known as Yahweh. And you said Yahweh was who, Gina?
Yahweh in the biblical text is a Anunnaki alien who pretended he was God in the Garden of Eden. But he really was a warrior and was bestowed dominion and ownership over the earth and
Now,
now modified
what
humans.
is, I'm not big on the Bible, so what does the Bible say about like Adam and Eve and how they came about?
Oh, it just says that there's the God. So we're already deceived by that because we all know that the Anunnaki is portrayed as gods and they're false gods. The true creator made obviously the Anunnaki. So, but what I was going to say is that that in the Bible text it says that Adam and Eve he created Adam out of the dust, like from the ground, and then from the rib of Adam became Eve. That's what the Bible says.
Which, yeah, that's what I was saying. It's closely related to, because they specifically mentioned in the Sumerian part, that it came from, the DNA came from his core.
Right.
So it's, yeah, it's interesting how the two of them are similar but different. Um, yeah, and the Anunnakis, there is a god, but he's the one that created the Anunnakis. The Anunnakis did not create themselves. Okay, so Enlil was Yahweh. He pretended to be a god in his area that he called the Garden of Eden. And he was given ownership of Earth and the humans on it. Now, he was also known as Lord Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the Anunnaki were false gods, right? So Enlil created the Garden of Eden, where he was known as Lord Satan, and this was like an outdoor laboratory where humans could, and they treated the humans like farm animals
Mm-hmm.
because they could only procreate certain times a day. And it was really weird. But they had guards surrounding the Garden of Eden to, it wasn't for humanity's sake, but they were there to protect the humans from like the Neanderthals and the apes and all the other primates out there. So nothing was allowed in or out, and or if they would be shot. So it's not like these people were free to leave. Um, so Enlil had the Anunnaki stay silent. Yeah, the Anunnakis were not allowed to discuss the fact that these humans were created in a lab, because otherwise they would know that spiritually we're equal to these people, not we're not lower than them in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And he Enlil asked Enki to weave into the human's DNA a gene, and there is a gene that they did find in our DNA. It's a worship gene. It puts They put the gene into humans, and it takes our free will away in a sense, so that we worship them. So, and then humans, I guess they were basically forced to procreate. Um, but then when all the babies were being born, they bothered Enlil because they would be, when there's a lot of them, they would be very noisy. And Enlil actually sent his guards out to kill groups of them all the time,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy. I mean, just it's. Are you sure they're not human? I mean, is this where we get our thought patterns? Because people do it, they're the sense, it makes no sense to create something and then kill it, which is what humans do all the time. Um, but Enki, he was not like his brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he had compassion for the humans, and so he found Eve one day in the garden, and she was alone. Adam wasn't around, and he decided he was going to tell her the truth. How we're part of the Anunnaki, right? We're not their creation. Um, they didn't just make us in a lab. We came from we were part of the Anunnaki because everything was being passed down, and so um, Eve realized that, okay, so we're not beneath you. And she started to see for herself what was going on. And then when Adam returned, she told him, right? And she was also aware now that the Anunnaki were not gods and the
And the guards
guards
weren't
were
angels.
not angels,
That's
right?
right.
Because they thought the guards were angels, and they're not. So then, and it doesn't say why Adam and Eve did this, but that's when they covered themselves with the leaves. They knew they were leaving, right? But see, isn't in the Bible, don't they tell us it's more like about shame because of what Eve did?
Yes, it was shame. So that's why they got naked and was hiding from God in the
Yeah, that's why
Bible.
they covered themselves up, because that's how that came into play, because apparently everybody walked around naked before. There was no such thing as shame.
Right.
But what did they say about, okay, let me just say that Enlil, when he found out what Enki did and he told them that he told Eve, he branded Enki as the serpent. So Enki was the snake in the Garden of Eden. Although I don't consider him a snake, he did something for humanity, but his brother thought he was a snake. So, what does the Bible say about like the snake and the tree and the apple and all that
Yeah.
stuff?
Well, nowhere in the Bible does it say anything about an apple, too. So it's interesting that they get the apple. So the forbidden fruit is unknown what the forbidden fruit is in the Bible. I'm talking about the Bible here. So what happens is that it says the snake goes and talks to Eve, say, "Oh, eat the apple, you know, or it's okay, you will have like godlike powers and this, that." So she goes to Adam and says, "Oh, eat it," you know, and so then he eats it, and then that's when all hell breaks loose. No pun intended.
Yeah. Um, so it's weird how closely related these two stories are, because I don't, I would say I don't understand why they're getting the Bible from the Sumerian texts. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not supposed to be written by the Sumerians. So why are you taking, since their writings were created first, you got to kind of wonder who wrote that Bible. I
And
mean,
not only that, how much is left out in the Bible? Do you think this is it?
yeah, I know.
Seriously. There's a book of Enoch. There's also the book of Thomas, which is Jesus' sayings. There's also the book of Mary Magdalene and the book of the 12 uh, disciples, I think. I have to clarify on that. I'm not sure. But there's books that are missing on there.
Even like in Revelations, when they talk about the apocalypse, in the Bible, you get the impression that they're talking about the world ending and all this garbage. And the book of Revelations was written in Greek. That part was. I know that. And it was translated wrong, because from Greek translation, the apocalypse means like uncovering the truth.
Mhm.
So, do
We're in the
I
apocalypse then, because we're uncovering the truth.
Well, no, I believe
Yes.
we are in the book. We are living out the book of Revelations right now. There's not going to be four horsemen really technically riding in. It's you have to use your own interpretation, but the fact that people are waking up and the truth is becoming uncovered. You know what I mean? And there's so many other things that can be translated into stuff that has happened, especially with all the natural disasters and, oh, yeah, the natural disasters, like Maui, and how that's just
Yeah.
naturally came about.
Hmm.
And it's funny because that video I was just watching was saying how, like, um, the guy that Was he the police chief? Yeah, because they didn't even let them use water. They had shut the water off. But the guy who was a police chief of the island ties into Vegas in the shooting. He worked
Mm.
in Vegas. He was, I don't know, but he was an official in Vegas when that all happened. So, huh. Bad actors? I think
False
so.
flags.
Yeah,
We
right?
talked about this
But he
last
was
week.
talking now like, I'm surrounded by palm trees. So, but I don't know anything about them. Honestly, I don't. But this guy that I was listening to was saying that palm trees are so full of water that they would never burn like that. And all these millionaires didn't even have soot on their property.
Wow,
How do you have a fire like that and no soot anywhere?
that makes sense.
Because that soot and stuff can go for miles. And just little particles being caught in the wind, and it blankets everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there's been fires around here, nothing that compares to California fires by any means. So, but it's people that live like miles away, and it looks like snow on their car.
Mm.
So, how does that size fire happen? I don't know. I've seen some pictures, and you just got to shake your head.
Right?
Because it
Use your
wasn't
own logic,
natural.
and it's just like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. And then really trust yourself into what you're feeling inside, and just don't believe the BS that they're trying to say on the news. First off, that's a lie. Yeah.
So, let me ask you, Gina, where between the two versions, what do you what do you think? I know what I think, but what do you think?
Oh, between the Bible version and this version? Okay,
Yes.
no. I resonate with the version I'm learning. I just learned
I know, me too.
about Enki as well. You talked about that, how um he weaved the human DNA gene that would seed with the need to worship them, ensuring that they bow down to their divine creators out of fear and admiration. But then Enki, his compassion and wisdom stirred him into, the gift of humanity, the power to turn on or off the worship gene at their own will.
Yep.
So let's all find that gene, okay, people? Let's turn that sucker worship off from this government and this world here.
Well, this goes to show you that the powers that be today are still pulling the same shit that they were back with the
Yes.
Sumerians, because once Adam and Eve were kicked out and all that, um, people were like walking around freely at this point, and they Enlil decided, and I don't remember why he decided this, but he wanted to keep or cause division, turmoil, and all this garbage with the humans. Again, I believe it was still just to keep us down here. So he started messing with the language, our language. So we
Mm-hmm.
didn't all speak the same language anymore. And you couldn't understand what anybody else was saying, other people. And then so people would just group off. But then, and the Anunnaki resembled humans, right? But they resembled us humans today. Different features, different skin colors, and because back then there was only one kind of human, right? And so then each group of Anunnaki had like their own groups of humans that they ruled over, and their skin tones and the features were all made to look like them. So apparently that's how races came to be. And us with all like, you know the European feature or the Asian feature or whatever. Um, but so yeah, they've been. Oh, can you hear Winston? They've been
Yeah.
dividing us since very shortly after the creation of humans ever came into existence. So, um, there was something I was going to ask you to talk about, and I don't remember what it was.
Oh yeah, going back to the forbidden fruit, what it is actually forbidden knowledge. The cognitive dissonance scared them, and that's why they fled.
Yep. Well, doesn't the Bible make it sound like this is all about lust?
Yeah, about temptation and being tempted and not listening to the enemy and
Yeah. So
shame
it's
on us, and that's where sin was created because Eve and the apple was eaten. So,
yeah, it's and I'll tell you what, being raised Catholic, I always say I don't regret anything in my life. Even the bad shit made me who I am today. It brought me to the point where I could awaken when I was supposed to, because we all awaken when we're supposed to.
mhm.
But I remember just, and I knew nothing about this stuff. Nothing. I was, I didn't know about spirituality. It was this or that. It was just cut and dry. But
Mhm.
that's from being raised Catholic and being forced some of that crap that they would try and sell you. But it's like I started questioning very young. Well, not like a little kid, but like 12. I think that's when I started going, well, what is going on? Because we used to have to do these classes. We called
Mhm.
them CCD. Don't ask me what it means. Um, I don't know. But we used to have to go once a week, and it was like, during the school year. And I remember coming out of there going, I don't know shit about the Bible. What are they teaching me? Nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And I'm like, all we do is crafts and stuff. Had nothing to do with learning anything about the Bible, anything about religion, and but I was forced to go till I was 14.
Oh wow.
And I remember they sent a letter to all of us that were done. We were in our last year, and they're like, "Well, we're doing continued education." I'm like, "You didn't educate me from first grade to ninth grade, so no, I'm not." My mother's like, "Do you want to do it?" I'm like,
No.
"Nope." And I'm, I just never could figure out why I was never happy with religion. Nothing ever set right with me. Why did God, who's supposed to be this, this, and this, now he's judgmental and he's not vindictive, but he'll fuck you up if you screw up, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, am I supposed to be scared of him? Because to me, that's what the Catholic Church instilled in us, Be afraid, be
Mhm.
very afraid. And that we had to go sit in some place called purgatory till we were good enough to get to heaven. And if not, you're going to hell. Purgatory, heaven, hell, none of it exists. Demons, I don't really know if demons so much exists. I know lower energy beings exist.
In different dimensions as well. The lower frequency beings, like if this would be like Earth, kind of,
Well, the one thing that actually made sense to me, I forget who. For some reason, I want to say Suzanne Giesman, somebody I was following about mediumship. There, because we were talking about protection, and she was going into, don't worry, because if you're serving God, you're protected. It's just the way it is. But she had made a comment that people are not good or evil. Well, all souls are good. There is no bad souls, right? It's us, what we do in the human form. We have free will, and we decide. It's the human part of us, the ego side, that decides to go out and murder or rape or commit some kind of heinous act against humanity or something. But when you die, which I do want to get into what supposedly happens after we die, but there are things that, you do have to atone for and stuff like that, but your soul is not condemned to anywhere. And that's where karma and all that comes into play. It's just, you'll pay for it in the next life, don't worry. Which, I
Until you
mean,
learn.
yeah, that's exactly why we're all here. Because, like Jesus, he didn't want us to worship him. He didn't. Why? He's not a God, he was a man. He was no more the Son of God than you are, I am. You know what I mean? He was, however, way more enlightened than we are. And that, like, because
The
when I
Christ
first heard to
consciousness.
Jesus as an ascended master, like with Buddha and some others like that, and I'm like, okay, now that makes sense. Because he was a human. Um, and actually, there was talk that, well, we'll get into that another time, but how Virgin Mary became pregnant. Um, but it makes sense. This stuff, saying, well, like, they were more technologically advanced before. See, and I used to say, us here on Earth, are we like the friggin' joke? Because if God really exists and this is all he came up with, there's a problem. Because look at us. We are a shit show. Think about it, right? So I always just think, are we the joke in the universe? Is this where people come to look and laugh and point? Are they
We're
all
the
just going,
lost
hey,
planet.
look at them?
Yeah, we were the like kind of like the forgotten planet, but they need us in order for the whole galaxy to be better. But
Well,
we're so low frequency and
oh, we're
vibration
definitely the
wise.
low frequency planet.
So that's why we're trying to awaken people so that way the consciousness as a collective can be like the Christ consciousness and we can be enlightened so that way we can actually help the ETs that are waiting for us to ascend. They're just watching us, waiting for us, but we have to do it as a collective, as a human race, from our creator, the God of the universe. And so that way everything will just become more intact and more in unison, the whole galaxy.
yeah. And I believe that's one of the reasons some of the ETs are here.
Hmm.
Is so, well, some of them have actually dismantled, I don't know what they call it, some nuclear arms, deactivated some, because if we explode, it affects the whole universe, all the universes, everything in space. So they're here to try and help us with our spirituality. And yes, just like humans, these ETs, they have their lower level, like we do, criminals and stuff like that. They have the Anunnaki, the lizard people. Although the lizard people have been here for how long now?
That's a good question. I have to.
I
Oh,
think
what?
it was whenever Atlantis, like right after Atlantis,
Mm.
because I think that's how the lizard people came to be, or came to be here.
Oh yeah, they've been there as long as the Lyrans, because they were fighting them, I guess, so many like million years, 100 million years ago, or something like that. This is I don't know how time is told, especially in space, but that's what I read in the past,
Well, time doesn't exist
right?
except with mankind because we're the ones that created it. Like people say, and again with Jesus, the greatest Reiki master ever, and that's how he was able to heal. Jesus didn't have a special gift to heal, no more than you do or I do. Well, some people have um, stronger gifts as far as healings go, but it's not even like one thing I learned in Reiki. I'm not a healer. I don't heal anything except myself. It's the person that heals themselves. The Reiki person just channels the energy to the client. And that's what Jesus was doing, only he was way better at it because he could cure blindness and, all that stuff. But there was a reason I brought him up, and now I don't know what it was. What was
Jesus,
it?
oh, there's so much to could talk about Jesus. Like I've in my heart, I've always resonated with Jesus, and knowing what he's done in the past with the studying with the Buddhists, and then being in Tibet and learning Reiki, learning everything. I guess he was the
Everything.
part of
Yeah,
the
he.
Egyptian mastery school or something, or what is that called? Also, the King Solomon was also part of that school, where they teach the best
This.
of the best,
The magic school.
something like that.
Yeah.
In Egypt.
Yep.
Yeah, it was crazy learning about that, and so I'm like, it makes sense. And Jesus came here to like teach us all this stuff that hey, we can do it too.
You know he was married?
Uh, yeah,
They said
apparently he's
chances are
married
he
because
had a
there's
wife and
rabbis we're
children.
supposed to have kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's a rabbi,
Yep. Yeah, because
and
they
that's
needed to know
uh-oh, it's
about
breaking up.
how
It knows.
um, the rabbis were supposed to have a wife and kids to learn something, but I don't remember what they said it was. But yeah, and I mean, he wasn't born enlightened; he became enlightened, just like we can. Um,
Why do you think in the Bible doesn't share anything after he was like 12 years old until like 34 or 33? I forget the age. What happened to Jesus between then? Okay, where was he in the
he was
Bible?
hanging with the monks,
He
learning.
was learning the Buddhism, and he was learning like Reiki, and he was learning more about consciousness.
And now, people that you would think are very close to enlightenment, say the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa,
Oh
stuff
my
like
gosh, let me
that.
tell you about Mother
We all,
Teresa. Okay,
yeah.
that's a different
Well, she's right up
story.
there with the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama's taking money from pedophile groups. Mother Teresa was trafficking. So, yeah.
You know that she's Fauci's mom, or
I
supposedly
heard that, yeah.
related. I was like, what? But they look alike too. Look,
But they'll never, still never confess to that. But there's three families, three of them that do all this. But now we know how far back it's been going. Since it's how we came into existence. You know, um, it's crazy. And then, to think of Jesus as like, he didn't walk around thinking, well, I can do all this. He was very humble. I mean, well, it's all part of enlightenment. It's like he figured out the trick to how to lose the ego, which is what we struggle with all the time. I mean, and when they talk about Jesus, the second coming, yeah, he may be reincarnated to another person, and this person will become enlightened, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
You
I've
know,
also
we'll
heard
finally
that
get
we are
somebody who
the
steps
second
up that's
coming.
enlightened.
I heard that we are Jesus. We are his second coming is us as a collective, as a Christ consciousness. We itself is Jesus coming.
No, I don't see. I don't see it that way
No
because
one told me that one.
only because of the soul.
Oh, you mean the
But
soul of Jesus?
yeah, but each and every one of us, every tree, every plant, every bug, everything, like I said, we're all energy and nothing but energy. So therefore, we are all one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but like all these spiritual leaders they say they got now, not a one of them has an ounce of decency. None of them can be in touch with their soul. How can they be? Because if you're in touch with your soul on any level, you have a conscious, right?
Hmm.
And these guys don't.
Or ones who have sold their soul to the evil.
Yeah. See, and I don't.
Is this I'll read this quote that I've got then. It says, however, we should be reminded that no matter what languages we speak or how far wide and spread we are with differences and appearances, we're all of cosmic kin and must always follow light and not darkness. We are multidimensional beings that can never die, but live in many lifetimes, dimensions, and galaxy. And like you said, energy is never destroyed, only transferred.
Exactly. And that's why, like, you know, they have rich people and poor people. We're not meant to be poor. We're meant to manifest whatever it is we want, but
We're here to manipulate energy.
yeah. And I mean, like, do you remember, like, when I was young, people would bend a spoon. Ooh. I'm not going to say it's easy to do because I don't know how to do it. But you know all it takes? Practice. Anybody can do it.
That was like in the movie The Matrix.
I never saw that movie.
Oh, you watched that movie? You're like, this makes sense. This movie is a documentary.
Yeah. I know the premise of the movie, and yes.
It's
The red
entertaining.
pill, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And once you see behind the veil and what the truths are that are happening, you can't unsee that. It just does something to you on a soul
Hmm.
level, really.
Yeah.
Um, but Jesus, like, he didn't want us to worship him. He never wanted that. Because he was no better than us and he knew that. You know? And just the things he learned, I mean,
He's a
I
teacher.
can't I can't even imagine that what we know when we're not incarnated and we are souls, you know what I mean? Could you
Mhm.
imagine if we knew what we're supposed to know?
I can't imagine because I the potential, it's limitless.
Yeah. Well, they say, like, as humans, we will never be able to wrap our heads around what really is happening,
Right.
the depths of all the truths. And I mean, I'm sure there's truths happening that we'll never know the truth of because it's too much for us. You
Heck,
know.
this podcast may be too much for some people.
Oh yeah. Well, especially when we talk about, you know, lizard people living in the earth.
Yeah, underground.
Yep.
That's where they live. So they can kind of control the vibrational and frequencies of humanity in an interesting way. That's where wars are always in chaos is always and false flags. Always happen.
They love those false flags. I do know next week, please tune in next week because we will be discussing something that is going to be happening at the beginning of October. Actually, I'll tell you now, there's supposed to be an emergency broadcast test done on October 4th. I don't have much to say about it because I need to do a lot of research, but it has to do with releasing, what was the name of that
So
stuff?
graphene oxide, what it is, it's like a carbon
Graphene
and
oxide,
it's
yes.
a filter. So, but it's interesting because certain vibrations or frequencies that whenever it's emitted, it actually moves. The graphene oxide moves.
Yeah.
And so apparently, with the vaccines, they have graphene oxide in them. And with these sound waves and uh on these cell phone
I think
towers
it's going
and
to
whatever,
release something because it,
it's going to do activate something.
yeah, this is what I want to research because when I just briefly looked up, because I only heard the announcement last night. It was right before I sent you the link. So it was like 2 o'clock in the morning here, and I just happened to look, and I looked at it and went, "Oh shit!" So yeah, but I looked up graphene oxide. I'm like, okay, what is this stuff? But it's in our cell phones too.
No, it's everywhere.
They
Yeah.
yeah they make. So I don't know. This is what I want to research. Is it going to be released from our phones? Is it the noise that's going to do something? Is it a combination of both? What is it supposed to do to the people that got poked? What's it going to do to those of us that haven't? Because it is supposed to affect everyone. So, but we'll get into a lot of that next week. And I decided to do it next week that way. Got time to research all this stuff. Hopefully, gather some more information, and it will be before October 4th. So it's not like we're coming to you October 5th. But if it doesn't happen on the 4th, there is a backup date that they want to do this, and it's on the 11th. Because I want to know what it's supposed to kick off as far as the people with the poke. What's it supposed to do to them? Because we all know, well, graphene oxide will damage your DNA. That I did read. It can damage your DNA, so is this where they start to put the plan into action? Probably. Because we all know there was something in there, and I don't, aside from people dying, yes, unfortunately, a lot of lives have been lost that were poked. Um, but the poke ties into the DNA factor too. So, one thing that I've never heard is what exactly are they trying to do to these people's DNA?
Think about the zombies.
Hey, do you really think it sounds that far fetched knowing everything that we know? It doesn't. It doesn't. Hollywood, you think about it. In some form or fashion, Hollywood's played out a lot of shit that's happened. Yes, they spin a
Exactly.
little story to it. It's not all factual. But where
Where do
the
they get
idea
the
of
ideas
zombies
come
come
from?
out? Who came up with the idea of a zombie? Because we only know what we know, right?
Telling you.
So, like, if you were still totally 3D and had no idea about any of this, right? And didn't never heard about aliens or didn't know how, if you never heard what an ET was, how could you even make up something about beings from outer space? You only know what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So how did they come up with, Walking Dead flesh eating? And it almost makes me wonder why they keep putting fetus stuff in there. Because the guy that was talking about it, SG and on, he was like, I think they want to make us all cannibals. So your zombie theory may not be too far off.
Oh yeah, I watched all the Walking Deads and everything. The
I
zombie
never did.
stuff. And then also, what is it called? There was a video game. Oh, shoot. Anyway, it's like about an experiment that was happening, and it's called the umbrella
Come on,
something.
get down.
You know that video game? Resident Evil.
I've heard of the movie. I haven't
Same
watched it.
thing. There's something
I
going
think
wrong, and
I think when it comes to watching movies, I like live under a rock because I stopped watching movies a long time ago. Oh, thank
Okay.
you. They finally shut off their car alarm. Me, 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 me.
Oh.
Oh, everybody, this is Winston. Say hi, Winston.
All
He's
I
such.
see is these gold eyes, like so
It's
cute.
weird because he has like he's all black, but he has like two white hairs.
Hmm.
That's all he's ever had, too. Up on
Oh.
right there on his shoulder.
Hmm.
See, and if my black cat and white cat can be brothers, so can human races too.
Oh
And
yes, it goes back to the what I was saying, that quote I was saying earlier.
which quote?
Oh, what I was saying about how no matter how different we look, how many different languages we speak, we all still come from the cosmic kin. We're all one.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I don't understand, and I seriously questioned about any religion. Well, I can't speak on all religions because I don't know. I don't know everything about religions, but is the fact that, well, if like I was raised, if you don't believe the way I believe, you're going to hell. For what? For what? Because they serve a god by a different name?
And not that think about it too, even Christianity itself is divided into many dominations. Like there's Baptists, there's whatever it's called, evangelical, and then there's also
Protestant. Eh,
Protestant,
Well,
Catholic.
the
It's like,
most. I was a late bloomer going to school, but I was actually working on my AA because I wanted to become an engineer. My favorite class was world religions.
oh really?
Yes. And I'm sitting there one night and I just remember thinking, well, I'll take that from that one and that from that one. And I like that thought over the here from this one. And that's what I'm going to believe in. But it was like all the best parts of all of it. You know what I mean? Be do unto others. How hard is that? It's just those kind of principles. And I'm like, not that, I don't know. That's when I really started, going like, well, so that's one of the reasons too that I don't know when I started to wake up because it had been going on for so long that I was questioning things and religion was a big one of them. And I'm like, so when people ask me, what do I say? What religion are you? I never knew what to tell people. I don't have one. And then they'd look at you like, you're an atheist or something. And it's like, no, I just, because I don't think any one religion I could follow because there's something in all of them that I don't agree with. I think most religions have an aspect in there that isn't very nice and does not go with the way we're supposed to be.
Yes, it's a dividing part.
Yep, and if you think about it, who created religion? Man.
Yeah.
Man did. Like, because when I was in that class, we were learning about like Protestants and stuff like that. Oh, a king wanted his own religion, so let's create this one. It's like, really? That shit don't even make sense to me. So,
Yeah.
anyway, that was our little sharing two different versions of creation, how humanity came to be.
Yes.
You know, all we can do is give you guys the information. You have to decide what you believe, what you don't believe. And what's that you say every week, Gina? Do your what?
Do your own research and expand your thinking.
That's it. There's many rabbit holes to be looked at. Um,
Yeah. I mean, that's why I always said when I was talking to my husband because he's a Christian and me learning more about the Bible and everything. Because like, look, when I was in despair, I literally called out to God and I said, please help me. And I later one week was in the hospital detoxing from alcohol. I never drank after that incident ever again. So I know I'm being divinely led, and what led me was to a Christian church. But I would say I'm more of a follower of Jesus's teachings rather than being like a Christian, because again, Christianity is made by. We'll get into that one too. Um, some the Catholic Church,
yeah, because Jesus was teaching
everything,
everyone what he learned.
Buddhism, and all that's like all that stuff. And that's why I love that. And a lot of his teachings come from the book of Thomas, too, that I want to then delve deeper in because I told my husband about the book of Thomas, and he's like, oh, it doesn't exist because it's not in the Bible. I said, but wait a minute. So I was just like, whatever.
And one proof for me that I know angels exist is what you just mentioned. You had to go through the withdrawals and stuff of alcohol. I didn't.
Yeah,
That was
that's
a
a
miracle that
miracle.
it was taken from me because, and I
That
believe
was
it was
amazing.
my time to wake up and I still wasn't getting it.
Yeah, that was an
So,
awesome experience. I bet.
yeah, yeah, I've had a couple. I'll tell you about the text from Archangel Michael next week.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you shared that one with me before. I love that story.
Yeah, that little
Have
freak
you
out moment.
heard there's another guy who had an encounter with Michael, the archangel, and I forget his name, but shoot, I'll have to forward it to you later. But he has a great story as well. He's a Navy SEAL, ex-Navy SEAL.
And oh, next week I will play the video that I believe to be Archangel Michael.
Oh wow, yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, it happened in Michigan.
Oh,
It's very interesting. Yeah, well, I'll definitely show that next week. For those that don't believe in angels, you might want to, you may rethink your position on that when you see it. Because there's some things that we see that just can't be something else.
mm-hmm.
Um, so, yeah, that was our little show on the beginnings of humanity. Like I said, believe what you want to believe, follow what your soul tells you. Um, and I think if we all do that, we'll all get there a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
So, next week we will be talking about October 4th. We will talk about some angel stuff. That sounds
Yeah.
good. And I promise, guys, I will do some serious research. I don't know what I can come up with. I hope I have more answers than just a warning. We'll see. Wish me luck. Because that's going to be a rabbit hole within itself. All right, guys. Till next week. Much love.
Bye.